afternoon, and welcome to Brave Embrace, a warm place to gather to honor and inspire the brave in all of us. Have you ever woken up to a piece of news that just really rocked your world? We've had a lot of things happening in the last few years, and unfortunately, that happened to me this week. There was a piece of news regarding a celebrity that had been released from jail after serving some time for a sexual assault. But at the Supreme Court level, there was a realization that that sentence may not be fair and just. When things like that happen that have affected the life that I've lived, it makes me wonder, can one person really make a difference? And today, I have a person who has done just that. She and I are going to walk through her journey of advocacy and turning into a victor after a victimization. You're also going to hear how recently she has worked with legislature to change the law in her state of Florida. So please welcome Gail F. Gardner. Hi, Gail.
Hi there. How are you, Kim?
Oh, I feel so blessed to be sitting here with you. And
I do. I feel blessed. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
Well, Gail, you and I have shared a storyline to our lives that we didn't even know. We've had a chance to get to know each other recently, but all through our lives, we have shared the sisterhood commonality of being a victim of sexual violence, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. I can relate to the millions of people.
That's right, Gail. Millions of people and millions more every week, every month, and every year. You and I are joining today in a sort of solitude as we shared briefly yesterday about what that type of change meant for us and also what is possible for our futures. But I'd like to start, if you don't mind, with the current news of House Bill 673, known as Gail's Law, passing and being signed in by the governor this week.
Yes, I am. I guess I'm still kind of up in the cloud, but I'm coming down to earth now. This started 2 years ago. I had not realized that my case was still open from a vicious rape that I suffered through. And my 43-year-old son was 9 years old at the time. And all of these years, I did not know where this individual was. And then when I found out, and then my case escalated because of the rape kit, which was an issue, and we didn't have one in Florida. So I started from there. I didn't realize that it was still an open case. And so we moved from there. I got a great team of people that worked alongside to do this job. I can't take any credit for this work, really. I believe in steps being ordered. And that day when I walked into the police department, I went in there for a whole nother reason in 2019 to find out that my case for 1988 was still open. And there happened to be some people between DC, Florida, and New York who were working on the backlog of rape kits cases. And there were few states that had a tracking system, but Florida did not have one. And I had worked with them on another successful legislation for Donna Hedrick, the Donna's Law in Florida for statute of limitations. And so they looked over at me in the Zoom camera. They said, well, since we're doing backlog cases, can we use your case? Because it's really interesting that you had to wait 33 years for your kit to say to be tested. Then I was told that it was tested, but either way, it's set on the shelf while this person was in prison. So no one knocked on my door. I hadn't moved out of the county. I hadn't moved out of the city. I retired from the school system. I hadn't gone anywhere. And so this kind of rocked my world. And so since then, that's what we've been fighting for, is to get the rape kit tracking system. And the governor signed it on the 29th. So to be in effect as of yesterday, July 1st. So I'm grateful.
What a miraculous story of overcoming, to see that something so tragic could turn into such a triumph that will literally change lives. So this
Yes.
tracking system, that's a part of Gail's law, will monitor and keep track basically of those sexual offense kits that are in the system. Is that correct?
Yes, it will. Matter of fact, that one of our legislators, Emily Schlossberg, says that if you can track a pizza
Mhm.
or track a Amazon package,
Mhm.
you ought to be able to track a rape kit. And so there's a barcode on there, and the survivor can track the status of their kit. They have a certain amount of time to watch it actually go through the process. So yes, it's awesome now that you can actually know where you are. You don't have to wait 33 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is so compelling to
Yeah.
know that idea that birthed into the possibility of empowerment for
Yes.
victims. Is that the way that you received this piece of legislation, that it gives rights and power to survivors of violent crime?
Absolutely,
Mhm.
Kim. I believe it empowers us to be able to move forward. We actually go through a period of time where we suffer through some mental and emotional upheavals after rape, assault, even childhood sexual abuse, which I'm also a product of. And so, well, I hate to use that word product, but you get what I mean. But by the time the rape came along, I mean, you've got all these issues going on and you don't know how your life is going to, come out. You're looking over your shoulders. And eventually you've kind of believe that maybe there's no one around and maybe they are around, and not being able to sleep through the night. It took me from 1988 to 2016 to sleep without the lights and to get a restful sleep. So
So
yeah,
these
it empowers you so you can
years,
get up and
yes.
actually advocate for yourself.
Wow. That is
Mhm.
such an inspired message of hope.
Yeah.
And I love that you're able to share that and willing to share that. And I so admire and appreciate it. I'm thinking back, 40 years to that young mom, that young woman cradling her son while
Mhm.
he slept in your home, and this assailant comes into your bedroom. Uh, I
Yes.
the fear and the unknown of what was happening, and also protecting your son, I
Mhm.
imagine that has stuck with you as well during these years of overcoming.
Yes, and but you know what, Kim? This is what and I don't, and people might think I'm a little nuts, but if you believe in someone bigger than yourself that is there for you, um, I'm a firm believer. I'm an ordained minister, but I believe in God
Mhm.
more so than ever, especially after this. And the perpetrator took me out of that bedroom, which was a godsend because um, it could have been worse. And our family members or whoever, even the dog, can be a secondary victim. And
Yes.
so he was not mentally injured. Matter of fact, he slept. He went back to sleep. He was awakened, and then he went back to sleep. So I'm grateful for that. But now he's a grown man, and he grew up with a mother who just had issues, um, and on top of issues that she had developed from a child. So what happens is our families are actually secondary victims in those cases too, depending on where we are. Can I say this? My culture are not friendly people when it comes to counseling,
Mhm.
and it has a lot to do with distrust. And so we grow up believing that and taught that what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Mhm.
But that can work well if we're talking about personal, family, business. I believe that there's a that there's that time when something like this, you have to tell someone. I did. I told the police. I went right next door and called the police. But you have to tell someone, and if you don't know what's going on in your house, watching your children, watching people around your children, uh, watching how children are being raised and things that were cute. Like, for instance, I could tell you for a fact that back in Bill Cosby's day, it was acceptable, and we don't want to victimize anyone, but at the same time, people just took it on. They didn't willingly take drugs, but and know they were being passed out, but nobody said anything, and people knew it in that culture. So we have to kind of look at that this is, we don't know who we're raising at home. What the rite of passage of boys with pornography, and it was used to be magazines. Now it's the computer. Um, something's just not cute. Young ladies being talked to and thinking it's cute for a boy to say something to her or touch her in some places. It's not. It's not acceptable. So we're looking at the long range of it is that we actually perpetuate this crime through people that we know or don't know, and keeping it quiet. And I believe that that healing, the discourse is the beginning of healing. And so with that, we have to keep in mind, but that we have to speak it, because otherwise that's what we're doing. We're aiding and abetting criminals at a young age at home, watching them do things they shouldn't and carrying it over. And
you have brought light to many important pieces, really, of this puzzle of victimization, sexual assault, how it affects citizens, male, female, of all cultures and races. And what I really admired about your sentiments is that there is responsibility within all of us for all sides of this puzzle, is what I believe that I heard you say, in that knowing that there are some cultural norms and some social norms that we need to be aware of, and reflect on ourselves to see what our core values are, I guess, right? And to see
that's right.
Where we stand on those issues, but ultimately to come in and support those who have disclosed, and allow them to walk into healing,
yes.
like what you've described through time.
Definitely. I hear people say, well, you're such a hero, you're so brave. I didn't get that. I just ran next door and called the police. Something that I believe to do. I believe I was taught to do. I know that this wasn't normal for me not to, and that's what I should have done, hoping that I could get some help. So when we do the decide not to tell or not to report, we believe that the numbers are low only because people are not reporting. And so it actually, like I said, perpetuates into one generation to the next. The term generational curse can be looked at as it would not be such that if we spoke up and if we call some people out. Right. So yeah, we need to speak up. Mm-hmm.
So part of speaking up, I feel like there are a couple of foundational pieces. Let's see if we kind of agree on this, but I would say trust would be one important piece of being willing to speak up, right?
Yes.
Like what we're doing, we've built this trust. And what is that other piece, do you think, that is so important for someone to be willing to disclose and to share and to speak out?
A lot of it has to do, it also is to how we feel about ourselves. And what we have in our personal lives, or how we've been raised, and sometimes not raised at all, but what we know is not right. And so that has to come into play, the right and wrong. This is wrong. And children don't really realize that when they're going through childhood sexual abuse, that this person and this is something wrong with this, and why am I feeling this way? But as an adult, we know that's wrong. And we don't trust for ourselves. And then we need to learn to trust for the other guy so that they'll be able to be comforted and be able to heal, which is absolutely important, and know that there's a support system that'll bring them through this There's no shame in going to a counselor and getting counseling. I studied pastoral counseling because I realized that I wasn't the only one in the church, and that even though we were not going to, we were going to, well, if we didn't say anything, and we're sitting there Sunday after Sunday and every other smiling like everything is okay when everything is not okay. But those secrets, you see, and we don't want anyone to think that we're not spiritual. So, and I'm going down that route because I said, I want to be the bridge that someone would be able to use to cross and be able to say, that's something you said that just opened my eyes. Maybe I need to see someone who's professional, because I tell them from the beginning, I can't take you but so far. But being able to still talk to someone professional, whether it's their pastor, mental health counselor, or whoever it is, doctor, being able to do that with someone you can't trust it's so paramount. So
yes.
That's where I'm at with that.
Well, you spoke of the compounded trauma, kind of that deep trauma that occurred in your personal experiences from abuse as a child and then as an adult. And so then how that contributed to your ability to parent and to show up for work and to be the friend and to be the sister and the daughter. I know that those are some ways that I experienced kind of the fallout with the way that it made me show up in life. And because of that trauma. But you chose to do advocacy for many years. Do you feel like the advocacy that you were doing for other survivors and those hurt and those with losses helped to build you up and to kind of be a little bit of a reflective type counseling for yourself as well?
Yes, of course. That advocacy came through pastoral counseling. And also, my one thing was being a listener. It was important because I didn't have anyone to listen to me. Not through the childhood days. Matter of fact, I went through domestic violence in a marriage, and I couldn't call my parents and tell them, what was going on. And we lived halfway, across the country for a while. So that part of being a listener, finding someone who just listens, I tell people not only listen to them, allow them to speak and tell you, and then also know that in that while you're listening, it might be about something altogether different than what what's really happening that they tell you. Doing bereavement counseling, they're talking about someone who passed away, had nothing to do with the conversation at first, but then you find out they are the first person they ever told they were sexually abused by somebody who's not even in the conversation, but they had somebody to listen to them and then believe them, especially when children tell you. Believe them when they tell you so-and-so did this to me or this happened to me. Believe them. And that right away breaks a whole lot of things open that and can start healing, the healing process.
Great. And, I love to share that in training with other stakeholders in the system that just simply by that faith of believing and just listening, like you said, is giving them empowerment and the ability to begin to step into that healing. So, for 30 some years, you were a part of that, impacting people's lives. But all the while, your rape kit, the kit that was gathered as evidence that night of your brutal attack in your home, was put on the shelf and not tested and not known where it was. Is that the case?
I didn't even know. I had no idea where, you don't know the system very much. And I know in some communities you may not have those pieces that how this is supposed to go. I went to an advocate for one of the law enforcement, and I felt like I had been raped all over again because they didn't understand. They didn't have the what they, what I needed. I couldn't talk with them. So all of these pieces that come together and how the system works, you don't know. And so you don't know if somebody's still out there. You don't know if they've been in prison, if they're in jail. You don't know. And so you don't know there's a rape kit. You knew that you knew they took a rape kit, but you don't know what happens to it. And I had someone ask me, well, didn't you want to find out? I said, find out how, from who, where? You know, nobody's talking or telling me or educating me. And that's one thing, Kim, I'm determined to do, to educate people so they can advocate for themselves and understand how the system works, understand why they might need to speak to somebody. If you're on husband number 4, if sex is not important to you and you could care less about it, is not helping your marriage any, I mean, there's some key things that we need to know plays into our relationships.
Healing from those.
Yeah.
Stop some of that generational trauma that you spoke
about.
Yeah. Trauma that extends out like those ripples, right, in a pond from.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Love us and.
That's right. And I really, and when I say sex not important, in other words, in a marriage, you've been married, you're married, and you understand the relationship between a husband and a wife. If there's anything else with you that's going on that's causing you problems in your marriage like that or anything, there's probably a reason, and if your husband doesn't know that you've been in an abusive situation, you got to tell them. And if you don't know how to tell them, you need a counselor. If you're going to marriage counselor and nobody knows, you haven't told anybody, the marriage counseling is really a moot situation, like, this isn't about, he won't, share his money. This is more than that,
right.
And it's not just a female thing. Yes. I heard of a story of someone who, got married and they went on their honeymoon as a virgin. They came back a virgin because the husband had not told them of a situation and how he has viewed his sexuality. Mm-hmm. So there's stories.
It is, and it's important to acknowledge that the fallout of an assault, while an assault is not always driven from a sexual desire, it's often that more power and control and the need to be in control. But often then the fallout for the survivors and right. is those struggles with intimacy. And in your case, so you didn't know that there was necessarily any movement once the kit was tested. Did anyone from law enforcement keep in touch with you through the years and say whether this was a cold case or that it was closed or any of those kind of things?
No, I found out. I called once. I wanted to find out about the quilt. Mm-hmm. It was a quilt that belonged to my great aunt, and I collect stuff and do the genealogy for my family. So I wanted that, and I wanted to cut a piece of that quilt to add it to some other pieces of family fabric to make a quilt. I was told that they still had it, and I was so surprised because the detective remembered who I was. Mm-hmm. Even before I gave my name, did I give my name? I don't remember, but I just hung up the phone. I said, okay, I didn't think to ask about a case. Was it still open? I didn't know to ask those questions. I just wanted to know where was the evidence that they had that had my great aunt's quilt in it. That quilt was on the bed and covered my son. It was not used in the crime, but it's still, except for the fact that the perpetrator did pounce on me and then, took them out. And so I'm thinking to myself, when is somebody going to call me? Nobody ever called me. I don't know to call and ask them. When I did ask, they told me, and the guy didn't offer any more information, the detective. And the day I went to the police department in 2019 I was passing by, and I said, let me go in here so I can get some records because I wanted to do a memoir for my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. I didn't think I was going to write. I wrote one book and I said I wasn't going to write another by myself. So, but I was thinking of doing a video, and talk about different parts of my life. I walked in there, and that's the first time I heard that it was still open. And that was all. So no.
Day, I guess, if you will, like you said, feeling that your steps are ordered and that there is a pattern and a reason why, and you went in that
Yes.
day and came out really, I'm assuming, a whole different individual, knowing that this was still open and that they were pursuing some possible suspects, I guess, off of the evidence.
Yes.
Wow, that must have opened up the deepest wounds.
Him, I could tell you. And listen to this. And it wasn't I was just numb. I wasn't hurting, but I did find there were times when I talked with the detective that I felt like all of a sudden a little piece of me was coming up that had been buried. It's almost like even with the childhood sexual abuse, my personality, I wasn't the most likable person, okay? And my personality, you would come out of some of the roughest things, I just couldn't see it, but I didn't make a connection. And it wasn't until the rape years later that the sexual abuse as a child started coming up again. So then through the years, 30 years, I'm suppressed all of this. One is suppressing the other. Now, when the sexual assault cases still find out that's still open in 2019, I'm once again having to deal with some emotions, but they're different because the emotions now have me looking at the system that that kept me in a place where I didn't know anything. Uncertainty. Representative Scott Plankin says that. No, I'm sorry. Senator Scott Plankin said that the one thing that really grips a person's life like never before is the uncertainty. That in essence, that's what he was saying, the uncertainty. I thank him for supporting as a sponsor for this bill. I thank Carol Wick of Charity. I thank all these people, Senator Stewart, Linda Stewart, and Representative Emily Schlossberg, and Ilsa Connect. Ilsa Connect is the director of policy over Joyful Heart Foundation, and that is the organization started by Maritza Hagerty. So, just her cat. I mean, these women knew every sign of what I would be going through this process because they have worked with people like me in other cases. Camille Cooper, all of them knew, but I didn't know. And I even for my local organization here, Victim Service Center here, they called every day or almost every day and want to know how I was doing, how I was feeling, but I couldn't describe it. It's just, but I would have sometimes moments when I was overwhelmed. And that's as long as I was, had somebody contact me, it was okay. But I needed to get past. I wasn't angry. Somebody asked me, "Aren't you angry?" I said, "No." And they were so surprised. "You're not angry?" I said, "No." I said, "It's like I've gotten over the anger. It's not about anger here. It's about what do we need to do to fix this so this doesn't happen to someone else."
So that all the emotion, all the hurt, and I'm feeling overcome now just trying to put words to it. I just see that you funneled and turned into the passion to be able to say, this is not going to happen again to somebody. We've got to make a change.
That's right.
And with the help of those that you mentioned, and I want to as well thank them, and I know our firm, D. Miller and Associates PLC as well, because what you have done in Florida is helping all of us secure and close those gaps that exist so often for survivors, and also the work that you did previously on the statute of limitations. I was really moved to hear that as well, because I know that is a barrier often to victims feeling some sort of resolution or restitution when they can actually find the strength to disclose. So I honor
that one I didn't do. I can't take, definitely. They let me, I had a seat at the table, but I didn't. They ran the road work. Donna Hedrick and all them going back up and down to Tallahassee. By the time I came on, I think it was for such a time as this, because I didn't get to do all the other pieces to that, but I did know of her, and I commend her. She's been such a support system for me, and in this whole thing, because she knows, and she says, "Yeah, it'll get quiet right afterwards. You'll want to know what happened to the band."
Right. Well, it's like every step of the way you chose brave, and
Yeah.
I love wrapping my arms around that with you and just honoring that, because you're such a loving, kind, so full of the spirit woman, and yet there's this strength, like a solid core of rock that just allows you to stand firm in what you know to be right. And that is a message of hope for so many people. And I know those listening and those that have gone through these losses are being just inspired like crazy. If they could be hitting the heart button on the screen right now, I'm sure they would be. So Gail, you talked a little bit about your family and your son and going through this. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what it's been like for them as you stepped into some of this new things recently around the law and also justice that might finally be served?
Well, for my children, you mean?
Yes.
Well, it's been different for them. They were shocked. And my daughter, who's also a survivor, is like, well, let's go get this guy. She was, when are we gonna go get this guy? And I'm going, that's not how it works, dear. Let's work on this. But they are really happy about me being able to win this fight. They are really happy. My youngest son is really, he's been a cheerleader. All of them have been a cheerleader, but especially Aaron, because he was there. And he remembers just so much of what we went through after that. So they're really, looking to see what else is going to happen from this. I think, well, we know there's another step coming about, and it involves them. And I go to them and I ask them, this is what's going to happen next, and I ask them how they feel about it, and they share how they feel about it. And I say, okay, because one thing I want to do is protect my family, but I also want to make sure that there's something out there for those who are needing my help. This wasn't just for me. It was for generations to come. It's a legacy that will go on. And as I said today in a quote, I told someone, I'm looking forward, if I'm here and if I'm not, that one day we won't need a rape kit tracking system. That would be huge.
Wouldn't that be a win when we all valued each other as human beings enough that we chose not to perpetrate violence on each other and hurt each other?
That's right.
And also that there was the help and the support in the mental health field, and that some of these generational cycles were broken, so that wasn't the common behavior. This wasn't the common norm, right? I would love to see that with you. And I have to share that I had the pleasure of seeing Maya Angelou when I was in college. She came to my university in Missouri and presented. And it was a couple of years after my victimization. And I was so moved I had read a couple of her books, and I just felt like I was standing there with that same sense of power and strength that I see in you, yet so humbly. And she said that the work that we are doing is so important because of those that have suffered in the past and those that will suffer in the future. And unfortunately that's happening. And as you spoke, that's what drives us. That's your brave. How do you choose the brave each day? What are some tips that you can share with those watching that feel stuck in their hurt and victimization?
One of the main things is you need to tell somebody. You need to talk about it. I have someone that I went to counseling with years later because I couldn't afford it back then. And now you can get counseling free, especially during this pandemic season. So If that's your choice, whether it's mental health counselor, therapist, or like I said, a trusted friend, but you have to talk about it. You have to hear yourself say it, and you only take small things, small moments. Um, you don't try to flood it, and if it's not, you don't push it or force it if it's not, because as time goes on, you'll tell a little more than you told the last time. I journal a lot. My children will make big money off of me when I leave. And I can hear them now saying, I didn't know she felt like that. Did you read that? And and so my children, and I also suggest to them is to write it down. You don't have to share it with me, but write about it. Talk about how you felt in your emotions. Those are two things you can do right at the beginning. Don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to get angry. Don't be afraid to share your emotions. They need an outlet. They need some way to come out and to speak about it. And at first it'll be a denial. I tell everyone, especially with childhood sexual abuse or with anything traumatic like that, there's a place where I believe even with the child dies, and I believe that child grieves for that lost child with childhood sexual abuse. And I believe it's the same thing with the adults. We have a place where that trauma comes in and a piece of us dies and we begin to grieve. But the grieving is inward. And until we bring it out, so we have to find an outlet to help us to get through pieces by pieces. It definitely it's never a linear memory,
Right.
So
that really resonates with another kind of storyline right now. Our firm, Gail, represents hundreds of Boy Scout abuse survivors, thousands, I actually imagine. And I think yesterday there was an award, a landmark award, dealing in the bankruptcy court with them attempting to offer restitution and some sort of restoration back to survivors.
Yes.
So there's a whole other process opening up.
Restorative justice, yeah.
Yes. So your thoughts on what it's like when you do carry that unheard and unsolved type of crime in your heart and life all these years. I love the way that you spoke about grieving the loss of that part of yourself as a child. I think that I'll share that with some of those survivors that I speak to regularly. So that's really Gail. Thank you for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But what other things did you do to kind of help yourself stay whole while holding that really dark trauma?
I was with the rape. I was already in church. Matter of fact, I was coming home from a church event that Friday night. My son and I late at night. We had been there, and I think it must be about 10 o'clock at night we were there. So I've always had a church community. Now, to be honest with you, my generation and the church community didn't talk about such things. And I just, it was an embarrassment to even mention. And I remember mentioning about my childhood to a few people that told me, well, you just need to get over it, and there's some things we just don't say, but people don't know. They don't know. And I had to come to grips with that. So I wrapped myself in my belief system because I could trust it. I could trust it. When people failed, and we all do fail one another, we're people. We come with baggage, we come with issues. But I knew this, that I loved God. And I was learning to love him. Let me put it that way. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have my mom. I was 40 years old after the rape before I told her about the childhood sexual abuse. She didn't know it. There was no support system that was tangible. And so I had to believe in a God that knew me. And I came with the question, where were you in both of these situations? And I never got an answer till November 2019. Um, I was always there, I believe that there was an angel in that dark room the night that I was raped. Um, I don't just believe it in my head. It was as though I could feel the presence of someone else in my room. Um, I had, that's all I had. That's all I had. People were failing me, and I was, failing them. But we don't know. We never know who is sitting next to or what they've been through. So I learned so many valuable lessons on how to deal with people and to try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Did I always, was I always perfect? Heck no. Did I have my moments? Sure I did. But I knew that I couldn't let go of what I had. I needed to hold on for dear life. And so now, that day in 2019, it was, I'm reminded of Esther. And for such a time as this, and it was bigger than me, and I had to put away in my comfort and everything, and began to wait and to do what I was called to do. And so I understand purpose now like never before. And it was good. It was good. I didn't have I had a great leader who was a father figure to me, and I have a great leader now. My other one had gone on to glory, but I have a great leader now who's younger than me, but he's been a great cheerleader, Derek L. McRae, here in Orlando, very much about social justice and people and community. So I'm in good hands, and
Chosen perseverance
yeah,
is
yeah, I had
is
to.
so amazing, that you chose that continually. I think that's a
Yeah,
message I hope that someone can be inspired and encouraged by. I see that you still felt the pain, but you were willing to wait out what the purpose of it
yeah,
was because you trust in your beliefs,
that's
and
right.
that told you the truth there.
That's
And
right.
I do believe, like you said, it can be years, it can be decades before that purpose or that kind of settlement it comes to pass. But I do believe there is a plan as well for such a time as
Yeah,
this, and
yeah,
and I can't help but think of the impact your work in legislation and also speaking as a survivor, being willing to share so vulnerably the good things, the bad things, some of the ugly things. Kind of that's what I talk about when I share, but all for purpose. And this week, I think what troubled me so was just that there is so much unknown in the system, and like
yes,
that really powerful quote that you spoke of earlier from one of your mentors about that unknown is some of the most difficult stuff and it drives you, but just the unknown about the system and with the recent release and just the messages that were out and then
yeah,
what that's sending to survivors about their storyline, and it's also painful. I don't necessarily have to be on one side or the other of the argument, but just it existing
sure.
itself is so
Yes, it
painful.
is. That's
Mhm.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, there are moments,
Hmm.
but they're far few and in between, than there used to be.
Yeah.
Um, there are moments, and but they, like I said, eh, I'm so enthralled with uh, advocacy, and but I believe, and listening to others through the years, that I really don't have, I don't, it fills that gap. Let me put it that way. It fills that gap.
Mm.
Um, and as it fills that gap, I believe is continuing the healing process. I would like to think that people are healed right away. I believe healing is a process. And I believe that if we're moving through and doing the things that we need to do, that we're healing along the way, and that in which we're healing in this area here is now ready to be used for somebody else while we continue on to be healed in the next area at the next level
Yes.
before we use it.
That is just beautiful. And I can't wait to watch, my dear friend, as you launch into this possibility and bringing that healing and that hope with you along, and witnessing that to others. I just appreciate that you're willing to share with us today, especially on the heels of such a great, adventurous, really a beautiful thing that happened for the state of Florida. And that sets an example for the rest of the country. And to have it bear your beautiful name just makes me really smile and feel thankful. So when I feel the discord and the hurt about the things that I see in the media sometimes, and my inability to really influence any of it, but I still feel the pain, but then be inspired and feel healing through your journey and story, and know that those are all happening at the same time.
Yes.
Um, and it does encourage me, and I know it has to thousands that will watch this. I hope that you'll join us again sometime.
Oh, I love to, Kim. Thank you so much again for inviting me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk again soon, Gail. Thank you and
Yes.
congratulations, and thank you to those in the state of Florida that worked so hard to move that legislation to the governor's desk. I just want
Mhm.
to close by reminding uh, those that are watching that these stories come from the darkness of really difficult moments, and our guests choose to share their bravery because we want to inspire, we want to offer hope, and we want to offer the real words about what it takes. So I hope that you were able to take something away today from this beautiful story and from our beautiful guest, Gail. And until next time, be brave.
Thank you.